Hello everyone, I'm Juanita Bezuidenhout, that one there, and I was a SAFRI Fellow in 2005 in Philadelphia, and it is there that I met Vanessa and Jackie. I was one of the founding members of SAFRI, and I'm also a histopathologist. And recently I qualified as an integral coach practitioner. My task today is to talk to you about the question whether we are better together as SAFRI Fellows. I know what my answer is, and I think I know what your answer is. But what do I base my assumption on? Is it a gut feeling? Is it because we have fun together? Or maybe because we like each other? Perhaps because we are all in the health professions? Or maybe there is something more to it. I am not going to give you my answer, and I'm also not going to give you the data that prove or disprove our hypothesis. Instead, what I'm going to do is discuss three constructs. While I do this, I ask you to reflect on your experience in SAFRI, and at the end you can answer the question from your self-reflection. In the other talks, there have probably been enough evidence to answer the question in terms of all the forms of scholarship. So today I'm not going to focus on the numbers. I'm rather going to focus on those slightly intangible aspects of a fellowship that might even be some of the most important in terms of how you show up as a professional, a teacher, and a human being. Throughout this presentation, I want you to keep these self-reflection questions that I'm going to give you in mind. And at the end, you will be able to answer the question whether we are better together. The questions I want you to focus on in your self-reflection are: what evidence is there that in SAFRI I experience a sense of community? I have gained confidence in my practice. I have found meaning or purpose. I have developed an identity as a health professions education professional. The three constructs I briefly want to discuss are community of practice, well-being, and resilience. And I will start with community of practice. The definition that Wenger gave of a community of practice is a group of people with a shared concern or passion about a topic and who expand their knowledge and expertise through interaction with like-minded individuals. And he proposed this model. In the center is the learning that happens in the community of practice. And this learning happens through building a community with a sense of community. In this community, you develop an identity. You enter as a novice, and as you grow in the community, you become an expert. You also find meaning in this community, and you develop your practice. And these four components support your learning within the community of practice. And communities of practice have certain value. There's short-term value and there's long-term value. In the short term, you can improve organizational outcomes, and the benefits to the organization are in the arena of problem solving and having more perspectives on problems. The benefits to the community members in the short term is that it improves your experience of work. You have access to expertise and you develop confidence in your approach to problems. In the long term, there's development of organizational capabilities. So the benefits to the organization are the capacity to develop new strategic options and increased retention of talent. And for the community members, it's the fostering of professional development. There's a forum for expanding skills and expertise and a strong sense of professional identity. The next construct I briefly want to discuss is that of well-being. And this is defined by the WHO as a state in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. This prepares you for roles in a complex system where multiple literacies, bodily and thinking skills are essential. And well-being can be enhanced through developing a positive identity, relationships, purpose, empowerment, success, rigor, safe living, and collaborative and teams approach to teaching and learning. So I want you to stand still here for a moment and remember your self-reflection questions, which I'm sure you have noted down. Look at the model of the community of practice and look at how you can develop well-being. Do you see any way in which the community of practice enhances well-being? I think there are quite a few points that support the development of well-being. Now, well-being is a state where you can cope with the normal stresses of life. But sometimes there are those stresses that are consistent, that are sometimes unmanageable or even unimaginable. And those stresses require resilience. Now, resilience is defined by Pemberton as the capacity to remain flexible in our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors when faced by a life disruption or extended periods of pressure, so that we emerge from difficulty stronger, wiser, and more able. And there are a number of components to resilience. And again, as I talk through them, I want you to think back on the self-reflection questions and see how they relate to resilience. So the first component of resilience is self-belief. That means the trust you have in your own actions and your capacity to deal with whatever comes your way. I think perhaps at this stage it's also a good idea to ask you to reflect on your journey in the fellowship, especially the on-site sessions 1 and 3. And think about everything you learned there and how you can relate that to resilience. The next component of resilience is elasticity. And this is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances and not stay attached to what is familiar and comforting. So, being brave, taking the chance, having the self-belief that you can take the chance and you don't have to sit in your comfort zone. The third component is meaning, to have a sense of purpose. This helps you know what you are working towards and why. And purpose helps us persist when things are difficult. I'll think back on your SAFRI application. How many of you said, my purpose in life is to teach. Teaching is my passion. Teaching gives me meaning. That's a component of resilience. The next component is solution finding. Being able to work with what is there and be creative in creating solutions, even when resources are limited or options narrow. This is something that I really don't have to unpack for you. Every African understands this. The next one is support. Support is what helps people through challenging times, and the availability of emotional support is especially important, so that you know you are not facing things alone and you are being listened to. At the same time, it's equally important to be able to offer support to others, as this validates your worth. Think about SAFRI. Think about your groups around the tables. Do some more self-reflection. The next component is proactivity. Change and uncertainty can cause you to freeze up, as individuals wait for the ambiguity to disappear. But we have learned that the ambiguity won't disappear most of the time. And proactivity means taking action to improve the situation, rather than hoping things will get better or someone else will deal with it. The last two components are, first of all, emotional control. This means that when you are under pressure, your emotions become heightened and more volatile. I'm sure most of you have experienced that burst of anger when the last straw breaks. And being able to manage your emotions, especially in those difficult times, helps us retain a sense of perspective rather than becoming overwhelmed by them. So that moment that you can take a breath and rather than lose your temper, stay back and gain some perspective. The last component is realistic positivity. Not the, oh, everything is always fantastic positivity, but the realistic positivity that comes from facing the reality of the situation and assessing your strengths against this context. So it's the ability to say, how can I make the best of what is happening right now, rather than hoping things will just get better. So, now that I've discussed in brief communities of practice, well-being, and resilience, in your self-reflection, can you give an answer? Let's look again at what the questions were. What evidence is there that in SAFRI I experience a sense of community? I've gained confidence in my practice. I've found meaning or purpose. I've developed an identity as a health professions education professional. And now also answer these two questions. How has SAFRI contributed to my well-being and my resilience? Once you've looked at these questions and you have your answers, it is now up to you to answer the question. The SAFRI Fellowship, are we better together? Thank you.